No, that's it.
Yeah, it's only 7.
Here.
One of those?
Easy over.
These?
What's that? Yeah, I saw those.
Those copies of minutes.
Yeah, these were Galt's notes.
Side or two. Didn't see that too. Well, you finish it.
All right, well, let's call the meeting to order. Karen, you want to take some notes again?
I will do my best.
Thank you. So, call the meeting to order at 7:03. And so we've got enough, and Nancy's still probationary member at this point, so nobody's changing positions. All right, so the no copies of the minutes out. Somebody,
I missed one page in here.
okay.
Oh, that's weird.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Accept.
All in favor, accepting the minutes as written?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Okay. Any changes or concerns anybody have? Okay. All right, so we've got a few things on the docket. Does anybody have anything to say or just observing tonight?
Just look this one.
Okay, thanks. So we have the right to know request that I emailed around. I don't know if anybody saw that. I have a copy of the email here. So that is gonna be significant to find all the documents they're looking for and then figure out the best way to electronically transmit them, because obviously some of the maps are big, so we'll take a look at that later. We've got Ron Blanchard, we've had a few emails from, and I had some conversation with the banker the other day, we can talk about that. But I think, Joe Beth, your email from Steve is probably the most significant piece.
Right,
I did not, I printed it, but I think it's still on the printer at home.
yeah, I looked at just before that. So I asked for clarification about the respective roles of the select board and the planning board, and this is in taking in land use applications and doing that first review and approving them if they meet the criteria of the emergency temporary zoning ordinance, or if there's an exception or variance, bumping it up to a zoning board of adjustment. Because it's still been unclear to me, and quite frankly, I'd love to have the planning board take on that responsibility of doing it, but this is what Steve Buckley from the New Hampshire Municipal Association said. He said, I have to assume Dalton has not adopted RSA 674-51, meaning Dalton does not enforce the state building code. That's true. That being the case, what the select board must do is act as a zoning administrator of your ETZ and issue land use permits that authorize construction that is consistent with the ETZ. Those seeking to carry out a land use project in town would not be referred to the planning board. They would instead be referred to the select board, who would determine if the proposed construction is permitted by the ETZ.
So that's pretty significant for us.
Can you read that again?
Sure. Okay, from the very beginning, or,
I guess just where it pertains to the select board and
okay.
the zoning board and ETZ.
What the select board must do is act as the zoning administrator of your ETZ and issue use permits that authorize construction that is consistent with the ETZ. Those seeking to carry out a land use project in town would not be referred to the planning board. They would instead be referred to the select board, who would determine if the proposed construction is permitted by the ETZ.
Can I ask a question? Is that just because it's emergency temporary zoning, or it would be like, even if we enacted like our own permanent zoning, would that still be the case?
So I'm not sure. I know one of my questions was that, is it different under emergency temporary zoning versus full zoning, and he did not respond to that question.
One thing, I did talk to him the other day also, and that's specifically about the zoning board of appeals, that if we have a request for a land use that doesn't meet current ETZ, then it should go to the zoning board of appeals. If we don't have one yet, how does that play out? And his response was, you can't process that request yet. So if you don't have a zoning board of appeals, there is no alternate. It doesn't go anywhere else, so it would have to just wait until the zoning board of appeals was fully established and operational.
But if it meets the criteria, then the select board would be the one.
That's,
Going
yeah,
in
pretty
and
clearly what he's saying here, and
You're acting as the zoning officer.
Correct, unless we appointed a zoning officer.
And to Tamla's point, it doesn't spell out, but I would certainly read that as this is because it's ETZ and not, town zoning. You haven't come up with town zoning yet.
Right,
We could certainly get that clarification, but.
right, because I had asked, should or can initial applications go to the planning board, or do they have to go to the select board? Is it different under the emergency zoning compared to the regular zoning? And he didn't spell that out.
So he answered the first half of the question, but not the second half.
Correct. He was specific about ETZ, but I don't have the answer.
Okay, so that's different than we all had been
Been
expecting
thinking of
coming
it.
into that.
Yeah,
So then, if that's the case, then for the planning board, it's really continue working on the proposed zoning ordinance that would go before the town. And really what had been our regular business of subdivision regs will not be done by the planning board anymore because.
no, well, subdivision still will, it's just land use.
Right, okay.
So subdivision is still
Land
planning
use,
board.
yes. Subdivision is still covered, land use.
Which
Okay.
is seems like a strange division
Yeah,
of duties
it's
to
kind
me.
of, it's kind of confusing.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's where
Yeah,
I'm,
it's like, what's the difference?
Yeah, if it isn't defined, well, it's.
Yeah.
confusing.
So vis-à-vis the fellow that emailed about being under some sort of a deadline, and if he didn't get an answer, he was going to go elsewhere.
Yeah, we can talk about him, talk about him next, I guess. So I don't think there's any more discussion on what Steve had to say, it's pretty black and white.
I mean, it would be great if we had a zoning officer or a zoning administrator, but it'd have to be a volunteer position, because we would have.
And that could very well
information.
be something that happens, right? Because you can't have it be volunteer, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a paid position, right?
I don't know.
If you did get, because I'm sure there's people qualified that live within the town that might be open to,
Doing it in the interim until March, basically, it sounds like, until something potentially
Yeah.
permanent is enacted.
Yeah,
But how long does it take to, put together, like, how long do you guys think it's gonna take to put together an operational zoning board?
so we are hoping to do a first review of applications at the next select board meeting, and then finalize it 2 weeks later.
Okay. So not horrible,
I don't think so.
yeah.
What's the status of the number of applications as of now?
I haven't checked recently, because I know some have come in, with hard copy and not email,
Mhm.
so I think there were. a few
There were
weeks ago,
8 in the
there were
last
8,
meeting.
Right, but I think that number's changed a little bit, I just
Mhm.
I don't have an update.
Okay. All right, so maybe we can roll into the Ron Blanchard question that you were referring to. It might be easier if we go over the map, I'll show you what our. All right, so he is lot 114. And so the story is that he has a mobile home there now. I have not been by there yet. According to him, it's 5 feet from the road, so 5 feet, 10 feet, somewhere, it's evidently close. And he's putting a new one in, and he's moving it back from the road. So the question is, this lot is .83, so if we think about the current ETZ, it's less than an acre, so automatically, if it gets processed under that, it would have to go to a ZBA.
Except that it's already existing as a lot that
Right,
size.
so that's, I think the question is since it's currently residential with a trailer, and it was going to be residential with a trailer, and probably closer to conforming than it is today, is that reasonable to say, this is something that is really covered under the grandfathered situation, that, it's, like, we've had other situations where the lot is smaller than we would allow today, something is happening that is getting it closer to compliant, closer to today's compliance, and so, we've gone ahead with some things like that in the past.
But the fact that it's a new trailer, I mean, the regulations, they say something about, that you're changing, since it's not the same.
Changing
It-
the size of the footprint.
Yeah, and the fund.
So that's the emergency zoning regs right there?
Yeah.
Let's say something about, like, the, like, foundation of cement.
This is-
I think it's a cement pad, right? It's gonna be like double the size that's already there.
Does the setback impact any of the butter boundaries? in those setbacks?
No, I was just gonna.
Given this sort of semicircular shape of his lot, I would say not. He's primarily, he's really just got one abutter and then it's the road.
Two,
Okay.
115 and 116.
But he's at 116 comes all the way across.
Oh, I see,
So,
that one's leadered in, okay.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
under the non-conforming buildings, it says any and all non-conforming property which is partially or totally destroyed by reason of obsolescence, fire, or other act of God may be restored, remodeled, and operated or done within 2 years, providing however that proximity to a lot line or right of way may be no nearer than the lesser of the original building and the setbacks defined in RSA 674-25 for A through C, and the height does not exceed the limits set forth in RSA 634-25 for D. I mean, it seems like if he's replacing an old trailer with a new one, that's obsolescence.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Proximity to a lot line or right of way may be no nearer than the lesser of the original building.
As long as he's got
And
enough
the
setback
setback,
from the
yeah.
road and the property line to be able to do it.
And if he truly is 5 feet or 10 feet from the line, then anything better. than
Anything will
that
be an
is-
improvement.
Yeah. So he said he has it staked for the slab, and I told him if I didn't get there this week, I would get there this weekend just to see it and take some. He doesn't have any measurements of distance, but he said he's tried to kind of.
So
put
the
it in
slab hasn't been poured yet.
No.
Does he, do you have the dimensions of the new dwelling?
I have the dimensions of the slab, 27 feet by 59 feet. So the dwelling, I would say, is probably a couple feet less than that in each direction.
Yeah,
And what's, you know what the dimension of what he's replacing is?
Well, if it is single to double, then
Mhm.
this 27 is probably 12 or
Yeah.
something.
And it's hard to tell much from this, but it looks like the back line is 412 feet.
right.
So, you know, if he is centering 60 feet in there,
What's the,
Yeah, that would be fine, that direction.
what's the, distance from the back, you know, to the line?
This one's about, what, 190? This one here, it's 116, is that 190?
yes.
So,
At the point, probably a
it
bit
might
more.
be, yeah, a little bit more at the deepest.
what's the, emergency zoning setback, specification for the back lot, for the back line?
minimum distance from the rear, a lot rear line of any building shall be 40 feet. Well, it says
Yeah, 40 feet for the rear,
Yeah,
And 27 is 40, 67.
50 from the front. So that's 90 feet, so
Yeah, but he doesn't have to meet the front one because anything that.
if there's anything that's back a little further is an improvement.
The same or
Yeah.
better. So, yeah, it would be helpful to know what the front to back dimensions of the lot are.
But it would
And
seem
then-
like it's,
I mean, if it's to scale, it would be,
You know, if that's 200,
200
maybe
-ish.
here is 170.
we're talking about a 40 and a 50, it's 90 and 30, so 120 would have you perfectly within
Yeah,
emergency zoning and should have another 40 at least beyond that. I mean, it's a funny shaped lot, so that, you know, there's a lot more distance here than out of the corners. but-
as long as he's not positioning it way over to that side,
Right.
to the far side where it's really narrow.
So his slab is going to have to be located properly.
Right,
And
so,
of course, is there already a septic on there, so
Is there?
I don't know. if there's already a septic, I mean, there's already a trailer there, or there was.
One would hope.
Yeah, if there's a septic, he would have to also position it where it's not on top of the septic.
So like I said, it's staked now, so I can get out and see it. You know, it falls in this awkward middle ground, especially given that news too, that we maybe don't even have the, you know, oversight over this, so,
So maybe the select board needs to look at this on Monday,
right.
but it'd certainly value the opinion of the planning board.
Yeah, so
At least get going with this.
I could give you some dimension, you know, of some photos and dimensions, so you have something to work with, to say, all right, here's what it is now, and here's what it will become.
And then, if it were an exception or a variance, then abutters would have to be notified, but if if it falls within the criteria, then there's any notification required.
And if there's a variance, if that's the, you know, the select board opinion, then it's gotta sit. Since we don't have the ZBA to evaluate the variance. So I talked to the banker to see, you know, were they waiting for zoning or something, and she said, no, it's just been going through the process, and Ron is, you know, he's probably looking at the calendar and wanting to get concrete done and everything moving, so I certainly understand that.
Is his old trailer still there?
Yes, I believe so. I'll confirm that also if I get out there.
Yeah, it sure falls within the 2 years, doesn't it?
Right. So again, we don't have say, but my take on, you know, reading that is that this is a reasonable request as long as we can help him to do a good job of citing at least as well as it is now, and probably quite a bit better.
So Joe, Beth, is there any, I know that if you're on the planning board, you can't be on the zoning board, but is there anything that says if you're on the planning board, you can't be a temporary zoning officer?
I'd seen it, I just thought it was a driveway or something.
Wickham's house,
That,
I don't know about
did that go behind Bradley
temporary
Wickham's
alternate, I
house?
think there could be one planning board member on the ZBA. The problem is, if the planning board looked at an issue and it got bumped up to the ZBA, they would have to recuse
starts
themselves.
with M.
No, but it was, you know, it's like in the interim, so it looks like the zoning board potentially be operational in a month and a half,
Yes.
right?
I'm having trouble hearing the other side of my hearing is very
If,
good.
if the zoning board's gonna be operational in a month and a half, it seems like.
Yeah.
There's the
Tomorrow's kind of
road that
bad
goes
day.
down
And put
there.
it
Yeah.
on top of
Right,
something.
so
You could have
it's
him be
Cushton
temporary
Drive,
officer.
it's just about
Across
across.
the board was
There's a
like,
lot
Yeah.
of tiny builds in there, aren't there?
Make my life a lot easier.
you know, and
Yeah.
This is the Whitcomb
Yeah.
lot right here, the 3 acre,
Uh-huh.
number 111, that's Whitcomb.
And I don't know if he
And
can
that's,
be, could be,
Bill's, he's
fulfill
got
that role and be on the
trailer
planning
with
board,
a-
I don't know.
Right, that's
It's
not bad, I
got
guess that's too.
blown off from it, the homemade roofs that got
Oh, okay,
knocked
yeah.
over and, yeah, I don't believe he's living in there. So, I think that used to be Shirley Smith Nichols' property. Yeah, it was, all part of her father's property years and years ago.
That is Nichols Road,
Nichols Road, yeah, yeah.
Every time Ronnie emails me, he says, on the 5 Nichols Road. Okay, so I guess what maybe is most appropriate is if we have a motion to give our opinion to the select board, such, and you can, the select board can take it or leave it. Anybody want to make a motion on what our recommendation would be to give guidance to the select board.
I feel like I can make motions.
I'd be happy to make a motion, I'm just not sure how to word it.
So if we say given,
This relates to this particular situation.
right. So if we say the, planning board being, me at the moment will visit the site and give guidance to the homeowner on how best to site the slab to improve from current setbacks and come as close as possible to ETZ setbacks.
Okay, I'll make that motion. What do you say?
Okay, I'm trying to write this down. Give guidance to the homeowner on siting the slab and,
To conform as much as possible to existing ET. EMZ setbacks.
ETZ.
Do you want to add,
Okay.
and add something about conforming, that you understand?
Yeah, on guidance to the homeowner on siting the slab and conforming as much as possible to existing ETZ setbacks. That
Right.
sound,
And then, given that it is currently a non-conforming lot for the trailer,
But it's grandfathered.
Right,
But
that's
maybe
good.
cite the,
So the planning board doesn't, you don't have an actual application from this gentleman, he's just contacted you for
right.
assistance.
Mhm.
Not to be a stick in the mud, but let's just say in any general procedure going forward, is this what the planning board would normally do? What would be the procedure for something like this? Because I think you need to establish how you're gonna operate.
Sure.
In light of the fact we have emergency temporary zoning and the zoning board coming,
Right, and,
for, legal reasons.
right, so I think you've got a,
I've got some sample application forms from other towns
right, so that's
that we're
part
going
of
to
the
discuss
discussion.
Oh, yeah, that's right too, yeah, the form.
today, and that we could modify.
Because I'm just thinking in terms of, let's say you did go out and get advice, and maybe it's wrong, or you don't wanna leave yourself open to possible litigation and whatnot, you know what I'm saying?
Right. So I
I'm
think
almost
that-
thinking you just need to start establishing what the procedures are gonna be.
Yeah, and given the news at the beginning, that we don't have a say directly, then I'm not so concerned about us having an application. The select board may, and probably should feel differently, that they need to have an application, but we can feed them some guidance and some information that we've got.
So Carl, the one thing that I had mentioned to Joe Beth earlier is I do, from what I understand is if you're on the planning board, you can't be on the zoning board, but then Joe Beth said one person could.
Right, but if there's an issue that the planning board address that gets bumped up to the
Right.
zoning board, then that person has to recuse themselves.
Right, so it sounds like we're kind of just talking about a 6-week period where it's gonna take to form a zoning board. So there's a 6-week period where the select board, well, it's a gray area, there's nobody to address zoning questions.
So
Or-
the zoning board of adjustment just deals with exceptions and variances and appeals.
Right, right, so, but you had mentioned earlier, if you had a zoning officer, then they could kind of field some of the questions that the select board may not feel comfortable.
Right.
So I was wondering, since Carl, you seem to be the most knowledgeable, is there, just like at work,
I
right?
see a bus
Well, would it make sense And, you know, because if we put up emergency temporary zoning, and it'll be the first kind of few things, we don't wanna say, hey, you have to wait 2 months till we, you know, because it kinda flies in the face of us saying it's gonna make things easier, right? If there was any rule against you being on the planning board and potentially being just the zoning officer in the interim.
I'm not sure that gains us, the biggest hole we have right now is for 3 weeks or 6 weeks, nobody can hear a variance.
Right.
And I don't think there's any way around that.
You don't think a zoning officer could make that call?
No.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but the zoning officer could make a call on whether this is even a variance or not,
Yeah.
or whether it falls under the ETZ. If it falls under the ETZ, the zoning officer could approve it. If it doesn't, then it would get bumped up to the, CBA.
So then the question is, who appoints a zoning officer?
The select board. Is that something you wanna think about?
Yeah.
The select board would be agreeable?
I mean, one scenario is kind of like we're doing tonight, that even if the planning board isn't the deciding body, I think there's a lot of knowledge here, so if somebody, maybe me as a zoning officer, I would wanna get feedback from here as, you know, some guidance, so it isn't one person, maybe it's one person making the decision, but with feedback from several others and local knowledge that often makes a difference. So that
It'd be a
could work,
volunteer position.
yeah.
We
No
can't-
money.
We can't, no, we can't without incorporation
Yeah.
by town meeting. So, there's no way we can. And I don't know about whether you could have that role and be on the planning board, I just don't know, I'd have to,
Mhm.
we'd have to.
Yeah, maybe another question for Steve.
What about, do we know how many contractors there might be within the town? Because that could be a resource as well that, you know, we could reach out to at some point for their expertise to, you know, assist and whatnot. You know, as part of, they might feel civic duty to help when needed,
I mean, the
just a thought.
good thing is, based on, and we're not talking about building codes, it's really just land use and is it grandfathered or not, so. Technical in the sense of understanding this, but not technical in the sense of like building code enforcement kind of stuff.
But also could be in terms of reading the map and making sure you're measuring from the right boundary, et cetera, relative to setbacks and just in terms of expertise, that's all. Just a thought.
And one, you know, this certainly brings up one question I talked about with the banker, that, you know, if somebody's gonna do an application, the best way to evaluate this is get surveyed and there's a map. And, you know, there are very clear position on that map of the, you know, where that slab is gonna go. That's time and money that, you know, particularly money that we, you know, we're gonna consider whether that should be a request of the applicant.
Right.
Subdivision certainly makes sense, you know, you're creating two legal, or more than two legal parcels that are gonna get recorded. If it's about citing a house or something, you know, is that, I don't know what.
Just in my past experience, that's what people do. If you're putting in a swimming pool, you bring a survey and you have your, whatever pool company who's installing it, they will put that on the survey for you and you bring it. And then, you know, again, the zoning officer could go out and check the progress of that. Depends on what the parameters are within the zoning ordinance of the town, but, you know, this is upstate New York. And
Right, that's New York. I mean,
So
we don't wanna do
my
any.
concern is people here might not be able to afford that, I mean.
Right, yeah, I mean, I
it's
don't
with a
think, I think
trailer.
the intent was, is that the way it was sold is, it's not gonna put any undue, so I think that, you know, Dalton's a small town, I think that it's open to our, you know, your interpretation, and I would say that, basically, like what you guys have already discussed is like, the intent of this is probably an overall improvement.
Mhm.
And it could be, you know, we get to thinking about the application, that there's a, you know, a clause on there that survey may be requested depending on
Right.
the complexity of the development or complexity of the proposal.
Or at least a diagram that the applicant signs of the lot with the setbacks. So it's not on us to measure it, you know, in terms of the responsibility.
Don't the banks, sometimes get a site plan? And I'm not sure if they actually get one from a surveyor or not, but basically just a site plan to show that, you know, where the location of the building is going to be in relationship to other property lines, and not necessarily an expensive survey. I don't know,
I think that's true, because when we were
maybe
looking at
it's
house.
part of their closing costs.
I could talk to Kim Doolin, who's this banker, and just say, what, you know, for other towns or other places, what's your practice on
Mm.
how you feel comfortable that things are being done legally?
You know, I mean, I think it's reasonable to ask for a diagram of the lot
Right, that's
with setbacks,
plot
but it
now, right.
wouldn't have to be a survey, because that's an additional
That's a higher expense.
Right, no, and that's not what I meant, I didn't mean survey itself, but you're
Mhm.
bringing a layout of your property, which shows the boundaries, and then you're indicating on that where you wanna put whatever building, improvement, et cetera. It's just part of the application. But you wanna be careful with the precedent you establish, because then someone might say, well, you did that for so-and-so, and just saying.
Shall we look at some form from other towns and then revisit this?
Sure, yeah, let's do that, and then we'll get into the right to know request later. I have not, I'll just say, I have not been able to talk to the lawyer. I sent her an email response, and she's out today, probably back tomorrow, so I just wanna make clear, she understands what we have, nothing is electronic.
Mm.
And so it will take some time and also figure out how to do this.
Did
She
we
wrote
vote
all
on
the
that
files
motion?
associated with the matters,
No.
correct?
We have not.
You're right, we didn't,
I'm sorry?
we didn't finish that
Oh,
motion that we were articulating.
Yeah, okay, motion to have the planning board visit the site, give guidance to the homeowner on siting the slab and conforming as much as possible to existing ETZ setbacks. And you were saying, given that it's currently a what?
Non-conforming.
A non-conforming.
non-conforming.
Would be grandfathered,
Yes, it's
non-conforming?
grandfather.
Non-grandfathered.
Is this the
But
same?
it's less than an acre, which is the,
It says, which is, yeah.
yeah, the specified
So a non-conforming lot,
size. Would you put grandfathered non-conforming lot? I mean, is that a
Yeah,
legal term?
I guess I would say that's, I mean, we are making a motion to make a recommendation to the select board,
Right,
so.
so I think that it falls under the non-conforming,
Mhm.
the recommendation is that it is, acceptable under the non-conforming clause of the ETZ, which is 674/28.
That's good input.
all right, so it's. Give me that book.
Okay,
Planning board,
674/28 is the clause on non-conforming buildings, land, or uses under interim zoning ordinance.
and then maybe it's, planning board's position is this home, or this proposal fits the description under that section, something like that.
given that it is currently a non-conforming lot under 67428.
Yes.
Under the interim zoning,
Yes.
yeah, this should fit the description. Right? Or this
Fit the
should be,
criteria of an
fit the description,
acceptable use, maybe.
okay. Running out of room. Of acceptable use. Glad when I get this one typed up. Okay. All right, so is Eric making that motion?
I make the motion.
So Eric is making a motion to have the planning board visit the site and give guidance to the homeowner on siting the slab and conforming as much as possible to existing ETZ setbacks, given that it is currently a non-conforming lot under RSA 674:28, under interim zoning or ETZ. This should fit the description of the criteria of acceptable use. That sound good?
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Get that cleaned up. All right, so yeah, let's talk about, and again, this will be a case where we're gonna be able to give some guidance or recommendation to the select board.
Exactly. And I did not get copies made, I apologize.
Works for copies. Who's that? Let's try it.
So some of them are variances, which I think we can deal with the next step. This is Carol.
So these are samples of variances and,
So I went online and pulled samples of land use permit applications and then variance and exception applications.
I don't think we can do two-sided copies since it's like,
boy, that's pretty speedy, isn't it?
It's all like my treasure at home. But I just need copies. Took long enough just printing this out.
Shouldn't the planning board be able to use shouldn't the planning board be able to use the copier in the office?
That's what I was thinking. I don't have a key to the office.
Oh,
Crazy.
It is,
Mhm.
yeah. And, I had this idea that maybe I would go and get these printed out, put them in here and run by Staples on the way in. That did not happen. I ran out of time.
Lancaster to Littleton. You ever go from Lancaster to Littleton? I used to.
Well, Lancaster to home, then, thought then I could go to Staples and back out and.
We survived it.
So that's,
It did not happen.
I think we're out of ink.
We can share, I think it's basically conceptual, to
Is that, or is that the same one?
All right, so that's,
oh, yeah.
so whoever's got one, if you can. So we're,
not mine.
What are we starting with, Town Carroll, is that one?
Permit to build residential or commercial.
so work location, property physical address,
Oh, yeah.
map and lot number, owner of record, general contractor, architect, engineer. Detailed description of work to be performed, new construction, existing building, fire alarm, sprinkler, other. Please provide a description of work to be done, additional pages as needed. Debris form, condition of the building permit is that debris resulting from this work shall be disposed of properly.
So some of these, like this is getting some building code things, which I don't think we want to get into at this point.
But it's pretty basic. Existing use property, proposed use of a dwelling, number of families, setbacks from the property line. Current use, is it subject to private or class 6 roads, change of use. All plans will be submitted in duplicate, we will retain 1 copy. So it doesn't say, surveyed plan, it just says plan. That would be a question we might want to specify.
I think that's page of that.
But otherwise, it looks, seems pretty reasonable. I acknowledge that we may be required to obtain other permits from state or federal entities. I understand the issuance of the building permit does not release us from these requirements, so applicant signs that. Insurance certificates must be submitted with the application if applicable. It may be worth a sit down with Wakefield or Carroll to say, if it's a new construction and whoever Presby Construction's coming in to do it, do they require them to show insurance? Do they require any things that might be different than if Eric says he's gonna do an addition on a house and gonna do it himself?
So with Whitefield, we've got a development / change of use and a change of use / site plan, 2 applications, which are very similar. And for the site plan, a drawing of your site and building footprint showing dimensions, driveways, parking areas, setbacks, all sides, etc. A narrative of proposed use, hours of operation, employees, etc., a butters list. And that's it for their floor.
Development, change of use, application.
And change of use / site plan application, which are identical to the heading. Bethlehem is more complicated because they have different zoning districts. And they talk about deed covenants or right-of-ways and easements, streets and sewerage and private septic and public water and private water.
It's very strange, two essentially identical.
So one is
except for-
development change of use. So is that basically new construction?
I would think so, but the forms are the same, looks like. pretty much.
Fee is different, but everything else I'm seeing is the same.
So with Littleton, they've got, application for, and you check the box of, new building or modular home or whatever. Got fees. So it's a description, estimated cost of project. Will construction increase the number of dwelling units on the lot? Is it in a floodplain? The project result in any construction, demolition, debris to be transported to the transfer station? Will there be stripping or removal of 260 linear feet or 160 square feet or more of regulated asbestos-containing material?
Is that a state
And
That's-
guideline?
Pretty, you gotta have permits for asbestos
Yeah,
removal.
Does the town have to, should the town be involved in that at all?
Yeah, I don't think it, like, it's, that's a kind of would be like almost a gray area where it's like you gotta figure out what's the line between, like, what is, like, if you're gonna build a house or a bank, what they require anyway.
Mm.
I mean, I would think that be a
right,
fair
and
amount of
that's it,
stuff,
'cause, I mean,
of building codes and stuff that's just there, that we wouldn't, that, I don't think anybody would wanna touch.
right.
Why get involved if you don't have to?
And somewhere, I like the statement that Littleton had. It said, no building permit will be issued for projects involving new construction, additions to existing buildings without this information. And, okay, building permits will be issued after driveway, sewer septic approval, and street number have been issued. The town of Littleton does not issue certificates of occupancy. Applicant is required to comply with all state building and energy and fire codes as well as all state, federal, and local regulations. I like that,
Mhm.
because
It
we
puts
don't
it
wanna
on
get,
them.
we don't wanna get in the business of doing
CYA.
building
Yeah.
inspection
Right.
and certificates of occupancy by
Right.
any means.
Yeah,
But it
But
would,
we wanna point out that they have to adhere to
Right.
those.
well, it would almost indicate, because Whitefields is so simple, that
Mhm.
you don't have to get involved in that, because
Mhm.
obviously they comply. I mean, I think personally, like, the simpler the better.
But I do wanna, sometimes it's nice to have enough, detail that you get the information you need to make a judgment, and you don't have to go back and ask again.
Correct, I get, yeah.
Where Whitefield is so simple, I mean, it does ask for a site plan and a narrative, maybe that's all we need.
And the other piece I would say on the site plan, that neither of these does, is put that caveat in that the planning board / select board preserves the right to request
More information.
more information if necessary. If it's, you're putting a shed and you just need some basic dimensions, that's one thing. If it's something bigger and more substantial, you can say, we need a survey here. We need
Right.
all the details.
And it seems like if this is
Where's the Littleton one?
a renovation or a change, we'd wanna see the current and the proposed maps, just like on subdivisions. You see the current and the proposed lots.
I think, something I'm thinking about is, a few years ago, it was required that, as far as, lead paint, people stripping their houses or whatever,
Yeah,
that contractors had to be certified to be able to collect, the dust or whatever, so, this specifies that they have to, the owner is responsible for certain things, but what's the, process of ensuring that they are?
And in our case, without having a building inspector, nobody's gonna do that. But the onus is on, and you're right, I mean, today, you need to have certified people deal with lead, you need to have certified people deal with asbestos,
Mhm.
and that's just how it is, that you,
So, I mean, do you specify that that be part of the application process? That, anyone doing that work has to be, designated?
that's, I mean, that's here, in this block.
Or it
What are
kind
you
of
saying?
generally covers all,
Comply with all state building, energy, fire codes, as well as state, federal, and local regulations.
In other words, they submit their application and you can say, well, who's gonna do this? Your application says that you're gonna have this waste removal done. Who's gonna do it? I mean, that's what you would ask in that situation.
I would, I think if this was in front of me, I would say, so you are aware that one of the state regulations is about lead removal and there's another about asbestos.
Right.
By signing this, you were saying that
You don't ask specifically, who have you contracted with to do that?
I wouldn't. It's what scope are we as a town really fit and able to deal with?
The onus is on the homeowner as well as his contractors doing the work.
Right.
They're violating the law, then they're violating the law.
Right, and who's,
That who steps in the state.
so then,
The
I
state
mean,
steps in.
But,
so the asbestos gets dug in a hole, put in a hole in the backyard.
but you think about septic, same thing, right? I mean, anybody could put a septic system in and use it.
Well,
You
But
have,
you have to have a plan, so,
to be state certified, you have to have a plan, but
Right.
anybody could do it. And we've heard of,
Dark at night.
Yeah.
worst case, there's one up the road that had nothing. There was a pipe that went over the bank, that was it.
is that the one that's being taken care of now?
I think so, yeah.
So one thing you guys could do is make copies of all these, and then just at your leisure, go through and pick out what you like, and then when you reconvene, you can see what everyone likes, et cetera, and weigh in.
I could send them to you electronically.
Yeah,
Mhm. That would be good.
do that.
But I think like Carl's getting at, it seems to make sense, is that, if all the state regulations and cover everything, and you just put that blurb on there, and they
Yeah.
sign it, the onus is on them and the contractor.
Right,
Right.
and it's just like,
And then you don't have to regulate it, because it goes.
we're not equipped to regulate.
Right,
Right.
well,
Right.
exactly, that's why,
Yeah.
that's why I
Right.
think that Carl's correct,
Plus
kind
we
of keeping
can't,
it
I mean-
simple,
Yeah,
and in the scope.
You generally keep it Wakefield simple, but add a couple of
Yeah,
blocks
yeah.
from here.
yeah, and maybe I can try to come up with a draft one too. I tried to, I had paid for the Adobe so I could translate PDFs into Word.
So you come up with
Totally
your
failed.
draft, and you send it to New Hampshire Municipal to
How
look
is that
at.
going for you?
Not good. Okay.
All right, so that'll be further discussion for the select board
Yeah.
on Monday. Monday's the next
Monday,
meeting.
yes.
Thing is, like, two is, I kind of feel like it's always important to be mindful of the fact that it's still temporary, and we still have to put up, like, I guess, a warrant and have it voted on in March.
Right.
And so I think people are really looking at what's happening between now and then. So it's like, you don't wanna say to somebody, you have to wait 3 months until we have a zoning board, and they're like, oh, that's gonna be fodder for people that are like, see, zoning's bad.
Yeah.
And then you don't wanna be too heavy-handed or require a bunch of expensive things, because that word will get out, and they'll be like, see, zoning's bad. Like,
Well, that's like the other thing is, you know, charging fees. Towns do
Yeah.
charge fees, but I don't know if we wanna start off doing that.
I would say not. I mean, you know, until we kind of
Get a feel for.
get a feel for things, I think we wanna be as light-handed as possible.
What is the reason for charging the fee? You know, unless you have to notify abutters or something.
Well, you do have to notify abutters if it's an exception or a variance. And so there is a cost there, just like the planning committee, planning board, you pass that on to the applicant. If you need a second opinion, I think if you have a zoning officer that's paid, it might help with some expenses with that. Although I don't think, I'm not sure in these small towns it covers.
Mm.
So it seemed like
It's not very, but.
under emergency zoning, at least, you know, we just do it, there's no fee, and then maybe when we get to the proposal for March, that there's something under some circumstances, but.
Right. And it might be that for an exception or a variance, then fees kick in to cover notifying the butters.
Right, yeah, after. And I
Not for
would,
just a general application.
and I would think we wouldn't even really wanna put anything in for a zoning officer the first, in like March, because you don't really know what's gonna be required, and then people will just kinda, I think, also run with that and say, look, this is expensive.
Right. And we don't know how many
We
we're
don't
gonna
need one.
have, we don't know the volume, to be honest.
Right.
Do these other towns have zoning officers, paid zoning officers that you know of? Probably Littleton does.
Lancaster does,
Right, and I think Littleton,
probably
I think, does, I'm not sure, I don't know if it's full-time or not.
You might also be able to look into at some point shared services. Sometimes I've seen where towns will share, kinda like fire departments, they're, you know, cooperate and whatnot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just a thought,
Yeah.
because again, you don't know how busy you're gonna be.
Okay.
So, you will send us electronic copies of these, so that we can review them and then we can discuss them at the next planning board meeting?
Well, I think we could move probably the select board meeting.
At the select board meeting?
On the 26th?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think we need to
Yeah, so
try to move
you could send them to this group, but it's really just
for
information.
feedback
Yeah.
and suggestions and,
I'm not gonna be here for that meeting.
Monday,
Monday, I'm gonna be away.
but I'll plan to be there.
Will it be allowed if Eric wanted to review something and just give some feedback to the select board? If
I
he's
mean,
not
yeah, I'm
gonna be
gonna,
available.
I'm gonna look at the documents, and if I have anything, you know, that I feel like I would like to suggest, then I will make that known.
Yeah, as long as it's not, no
as
decisions
long
are
as we're
being
not
made
making
Right.
decisions and
Yeah.
having discussion behind the,
behind the scenes, yeah.
Okay. So,
so do we need to revisit, will we ask Mr. Blanchard to fill out an application at some point? I think we probably will want his signature on the application.
yeah, so I think that's, you know, I'll kind of explain the situation we're in right now, that on Monday, the select board is going to be working on the application, and, you know, he should be ready to have this information available, and I can work with him on a plot sketch or something. I'm not,
Okay.
I haven't met him yet, so I'm not sure about capability or, you know, kind of anything about him really. a sense of where he's at.
Speaking of, does Jesse have the ability to print a plot map for him if you need it? Do you have any, is that digitally available in the town? You know, if he needed his lot, or, I mean,
They should have PDFs, yes.
okay,
Because that's on the website, the PDFs are on the website.
okay,
So, I mean,
Yeah.
it just depends on if she's got the ability to window in maybe a certain area, like his
Okay.
lot, and just a small area around it, and zoom it up, zoom it out so she can,
okay,
so we can read it better.
Right.
But there are PDF files,
okay, that's helpful.
yeah.
Okay, so should we go on to the right to know, or anything further we wanna discuss there? All right, so I emailed this out last night, I don't know how many of you got a chance to look at it, but I'll just read through it again. This is VCM Environmental and Land Law. So they sent this to Jesse on Friday. And of course, town office is closed on Friday and Monday, so Jesse emailed me about 8 o'clock yesterday morning. Pursuant to RSA 91A, the right to know, I request the production of copies of all records associated with Casella's efforts to site a new landfill, primarily in Dalton, New Hampshire. Accordingly, I request copies of all records related to any of the following people or entities from all departments, commissions, or other subunits of the town at any of the following locations. People and entities: Casella, Casella Waste, North Country Environmental Services, any entity known to you to be an affiliate of any of the foregoing: Douglas Chick Ingerson, Dalton Valley Drags LLC, JW Tripping Corp., or any entity known to you to be an affiliate of any of the three foregoing. So basically any variations on those names or subdivisions. Location: the street address of the site in question is 104 Douglas Drive, Bethlehem, New Hampshire. However, please note that while this is the only street address I know of that is associated with the site encompasses several lots, including at least the following: Dalton Tax Map 405, Lot 33, 312 acres, Map 46, Lot 1, 226 acres, 406, Lot 2.1, 406, Lot 2.3, 406, Lot 2.4, 406, Lot 2.5, 406, Lot 3, 406, Lot 3.1, and 406, Lot 3A, reference Amanuensis Asphalt lease dated May 21st, 2015. To be clear, while my primary objective is to stay abreast of communications and developments as it relates to the potential siting of a landfill, this request seeks all records that respond to at least one of the people and entities and one of the locations listed above, regardless of whether the record relates to landfill or another topic. For example, this request includes any record associated with gravel activity. As you know, pursuant to RSA 91A 4.4, the town of Dalton must make available for copying or provide copies of all governmental and public records requested immediately if they are readily available, or within 5 business days, must make them available or deny the request with legally sufficient reasons, or explain when such determination on release and denial will reasonably be made. Please note that government or public records include all responsive electronic documents such as emails, voicemail recordings, etc. I request for these records to be provided electronically, by email if possible. If not, I would like to mail a thumb drive to you for you to upload the files. My firm guarantees payment of a fee up to $250, and please contact me if it will cost more than $250. Thank you for your anticipated prompt attention to these requests. Please contact me with any questions if you need anything further. Sincerely, Amy Manzelli, Esquire.
Are we legally obligated to provide electronic copies when we don't have them? I mean, it just seemed like we should be responsible for making it available for them to make copies, okay? Like, here's the here's the map, it's up to you to make your own copy of it.
Well, I think we would make the copy prior to.
We would probably have to have the ability to copy it or scan it here. Yeah, I don't know, it's a good question.
And I think we should, get clarification on the timeline for that. Because when you're talking about the gravel permit, how far back is she want
Right.
the?
So
Yeah.
I wrote to her last night, first that this 5-day time period, so maybe that started on Friday when she sent the email, so we're there at this point, but given that the town office is not open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, and Amy, as it turns out, is out of town, so hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to contact her.
And I think, we may not be able to comply with getting everything together in 5 days, so we just don't have the staffing to do that.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
at least let her know that we're gonna work on it in her timeline, then.
Right, and that's what I wrote last night, I said, we're certainly will comply with this request, but given timing and trying to understand how to process all of these documents, we need to have some discussion. Because within the town hall, we don't have ability to scan a map.
Not the large ones, not unless they do it piecemeal,
Right.
which will be a lot of
I don't
fun.
think we wanna get into
But are the
that.
maps we have there, are those the same ones that are online in PDFs?
The tax maps, yes,
But if somebody comes in with an application,
I'm trying to think of the
That's-
2016 version.
So it's
It may be the same, is that 2016 also?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
but if there's any application with other details, it won't be on that tax map.
Yeah.
And so, for example, there was the lot line adjustment request back earlier this year, which was not approved, but did we keep a copy of that?
We can go through the files and
These
that's what we,
these were last updated in March of 2016.
Carl, when people were coming
So those are probably the same
before,
ones that
they
are
do a
online
thumb
then?
drive
It's
and
probably
printed
the-
copies?
I'm sorry?
When they came before, like, when we were at that April meeting, I know that they had to have 3 printed copies, and that, did they have to do a thumb drive or anything, or just the printed copies?
I mean, those files were emailed to us also, so we have those electronically.
So I guess that kind of, going forward with some of the stuff, we're understanding people are gonna be asking for this information, that might steer some of the requirements to have electronic copies of stuff for people,
Mhm.
especially big maps.
Right.
I was just thinking, this could be the first of a few other requests. There may be at least one more request, I would guess, depending on who her client is. But we don't wanna have to do this multiple times. So if we have the ability to scan it, scan the whole thing as completely as we can, put it somewhere on town computer or whoever, planning board computer, and then it will be there, be easy to do at the second request. The first time it may not be so easy.
Yeah.
Who would be able to scan a large map like that? Is that like a Staples kind of a thing, or?
My company can probably do it, I would have to ask my boss. I probably would want to recuse myself from doing it, as part of my job,
Right.
I would think, because I wouldn't wanna have my boss paying me, although it's an hourly rate that I get paid, but,
But there's,
Yeah.
there's money involved here, so I would say, we need to do this, we need to find a place that's capable, your work is
Yeah.
one. I could talk-
Staples might be, but I don't know if you can simply come in and say, here's what we want for you to scan or copy.
So I don't know if you can,
And
I
you might have to
stood there,
just drop it off and say,
yeah.
this is what we want, and walk away. Do we wanna do that with town records?
So I know you can go to Staples, if you've got a credit card, and you can scan things, I've done that. It's
The
easier than-
smaller copies, right?
Yeah, I mean.
I
I think
I
two
don't
by,
know
two
about
by
big
three is the
ones.
biggest they can do, I believe.
Yeah,
What
but
is the
do they
biggest?
allow the
2 by 3.
public to copy any of those, to use those? Because I think that's behind their desk.
They do, I mean, you can go back there and watch and help, whatever, but
Mhm.
I think 2 by 3 is the biggest they
Yeah.
do.
I have no idea what the costs are for staples, but it may be cheaper than what my company would come up with.
Yeah,
And 2x3, does that cover what, I don't even remember.
Yeah, they're 24 by 36. Yeah, these are, there's a possibility there might be something a little bit bigger. I haven't opened up all the plans, they might have some that are like 3 by 3. Especially that big piece of land, so.
even in terms of all the files, I mean, Staples, it's so much quicker to use the big machines to scan things than the copier here.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're reasonable too.
And then, I mean, I can't remember what they are, but I don't think they're that much.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
it's per page rate and,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I've done it because it's quicker than my clunky little cheap
Mhm.
scanner printer at home. But, you know, the copier here, I don't know if the copier scans and there's another little scanner which is not very good and, you know, this one obviously is slow and clunky too,
Yeah,
just in terms of.
And it is
Yeah.
personally acceptable to charge your expenses for doing it anyway, so.
Mhm.
So I think we
The
can
cost really
charge,
shouldn't be,
I think we can charge the media, so like the copies, but we can't charge for time.
you know.
But given
yeah, like
what
the
she's
scanning service.
requesting electronic,
Yeah, she
Yeah.
is requesting electronic.
and to Terry's point, it may be helpful for us in the future to have it electronic anyway,
Right.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's really the way to go, and,
Well, to Terry's point, you could, going forward, if you know what the actual costs are with doing some of this, and kind of make that part of, you know, some people charge
Criteria.
50 cents a copy, whatever, at the office, so charge accordingly.
and this way even, you know, I'm not sure legally, because I know legally you can charge for the, you know, making the copies, a per copy fee, and a thumb drive if you do that, or a disc or whatever. But this, you'd have a receipt on the cost of scanning. I mean, it seems
Mhm.
like a pretty clear,
what I'm thinking is to get a sense from Staples of, you know, what's the per sheet rate to scan, and then be able to come back to her and say, okay, the $250 that you're talking about will get you approximately this much,
yeah.
and if that makes sense, then we will work up to that, and if we hit it, we'll stop and call you and have you come up with more money, but the way this is written, they want the entire file on all of these lot numbers, because that's got
Mhm.
chick, and it's got the lot number, and that's what they want.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, it says regardless of whether the record relates to landfill or another topic.
right.
Because the
So,
only thing that's gonna be related to a landfill is that lot line adjustment.
Lot line adjustment, that one lot
How
line
far
adjustment.
back do they, just like that?
doesn't
That isn't
specify.
specified.
Right.
So
'Cause it
what,
looks kind of like they're looking at his gravel operation.
Mhm.
anything,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's where, because I mean, the select board, I know, looks at gravel documents,
Right, so that's,
so
would
that
also be part of
would be
the,
part of it.
yeah,
and-
the tax
Mhm.
side of it.
Yeah,
What about any meeting minutes? It says all records. Does that
Are
include,
those available on the website?
yeah,
So maybe.
to a certain point, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
It goes back so far, but.
I don't know how far back, but it
Yeah.
goes, yeah,
So
And
I
that's
feel
where
like
the time
we need
constraint-
some guidance on cost and scope and, yeah, that
Maybe I have
could
to go
be,
back to where they bought the property.
Yeah,
and it seems like if there are things that are available online, we should point them there, like the tax maps and
Yeah.
minutes,
mhm,
and you know, if we had unlimited staff time to go through this, but this is a lot of work.
yeah.
and
But like, I think, like you said though, I think this is gonna be,
It may be, there may be one other request in the near, in the, within the next 5 years or so, there might be 10 requests. We don't know.
I have to be 10.
Huh?
I have to be more than less. Because of the nature of it.
Now, I've never scanned anything at Staples, so I assume they have a different price for scanning versus copying, maybe.
That's what, I've done both, it's been a
Um,
few months since I've done it, I don't remember.
Do they have a price list?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
It shows.
no.
it wasn't that.
I wonder if you bring your own media, or they will provide media for a cost.
I think you could do that, or you could have emails to you.
Yeah, I don't think you wanna email this.
Yeah, these are gonna be
These are gonna
big,
be-
This is going to be big.
and I don't think it's gonna be one thumb drive either.
Well, it depends on how big. I've got some that are 32 gigs, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I was just
Yeah.
doing smaller documents and I
Yeah.
just emailed it to myself.
Yeah, and I think we want to be careful about how we store the electronic files as far as in folders. You don't wanna just have one massive jumble of files. Now, if you scan it, I'm not sure how Staples can name the files.
Right,
I mean, a lot of times I have scanners at work that are, I've got the really big ginormous scanners, and I've got, or one anyway, and we've got the office size scanners. And we can fit 100 documents like this size, or 11 by 17s, we can fit 100 documents into the feeder and hit some buttons, and shoom, 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 and it comes up with one big multi-page file, and unless you actually, if you only put in 5 documents, but you can have a big multi-page file, and it will have an odd name, like
Mhm.
the,
Yeah, you're
maybe
gonna have to do
initials,
each-
like the
each
model
document
number of your
itself,
copier, and then 0069432, and it's like, what the heck is that?
And then you've got this big
So-
unwieldy PDF document.
Yeah, I mean, it
It
depends, I
seems
mean,
like
yeah.
this is gonna take some time just to sort it out, to probably mimic our hard copy files when it's appropriate.
Yeah,
Right, I mean.
so if we have a 20-page document, it's all stapled
Right.
together, we'll have to unstaple it, feed it in as one PDF, one multi-page file.
Make sure we have it named and cataloged.
Yeah, and if we grab it out of a folder that says map 405 lot 33, then we create a folder on the computer, and all those files will be put in there
Right.
electronically.
So, I'm still learning about the different roles in town government. So is this usually like the select board admin assistant, or the planning board secretary, or the town clerk? That would actually.
Well, it's one of those things where technically, we're the only ones that have access to the files, so,
Okay.
this is addressed to Jesse as town clerk, but there are select board documents, there are planning board documents.
Yeah.
I don't see this as, we open the file and say, here you go, we're gonna provide what we as a planning board have for emails and history on this. And the select board's gonna provide what they have,
Okay.
and trying to get some feedback from Amy on how she sees this really playing out, because it's gonna take some time, like I said, we've got a folder in the drawer for every one of these map and lot,
Mm.
and it's full of meeting minutes and some notes and some maps, all interspersed, so even getting through one folder is gonna take some time, because you scan a map and you've gotta tie it back to that date. It's gonna take some work.
Yeah, it's
So are there,
coordinate.
are there some privacy issues relative to, like, the files? Because you said you guys only have access to certain ones. Is there a need for maybe a little bit more oversight over the whole process? Just for security purposes and making sure everything's on the up and up and.
Well, these are all public records, aren't they?
They're public records, but they're owned by the town, so we've gotta be responsible for keeping them intact and not getting everything all mixed up in different folders or.
Bethlehem lost stuff, and that really came back to bite them, and that's just a, kind of a concern,
Yeah,
I would think, for the town.
yeah.
And as a, as a select board, kind of overseeing this process too, it may be worth contacting town council to say, we have a right to know request, it's gonna have a tremendous number of documents associated with it. Is there any protocol on how this should be done, how?
Right, especially since there's no facilities here,
Right.
because
Right.
typically, typically I would imagine that you wouldn't want any of the documents to even leave the building.
That would be the best case, right? But
But unfortunately, that's not gonna happen.
Right, so somebody responsible would have to take them along and make sure they were probably with them at all times. That's what I would think.
And again, I just think the town needs to, cover itself and make sure everything's on the, done properly.
I mean, it seems like even if there's somebody who helped, that somebody from the planning board should be part of that process because of the knowledge in terms of how to organize things and.
yeah, and again, I think, we own what we have here, but if we can get some guidance from town council and, I'll certainly ask Amy too, what's the protocol on how this is done or should be done. I'm sure she's got some of the same concerns like John does on, making sure it's done right. So we're a small town, New Hampshire, there needs to be something more than 2 pages of give us everything you have. That's,
Right.
it's.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Carl, even, see what the cost to rent a scanner, they lease them. Rent it, do it here, kinda have it as a process, have 2 or 3 people, somebody's undoing it, somebody's scanning it, somebody's labeling it, somebody's putting everything back in. Next, that seems like the most orderly way to do it. Just have,
Can you,
just tell
can
them
you
to
lease a scanner?
I think you can.
And they would deliver it, if you like lease it from Staples.
Oh, you think you may be able to from them?
Yeah, because we lease my work, but
Well,
I think
might
that
be
you
some
can
other
go.
places too, you
Yeah.
could look into it, but I
We
know
got
that
$250
Staples.
to work with.
Well,
Yeah.
if we tell them, no, but if you tell them that, if they really want what they want in an organized manner,
Yeah.
we would have to have, it's gonna take probably a month to do it, with whatever people, and have to rent it, and this is the cost to rent it.
Yeah, there's obviously the 5-day timeline in here
Right.
is already gone.
It's already,
Right.
So,
And it's
Right, and I think, right, because I really
So-
think that, if we look at if it's the cost to rent one is looked at, then I think that's probably the most secure, prudent way to do it, is have it here and not have the documents leave the building.
Yeah, that makes me feel a lot better than going to Staples.
Yeah, I
and-
like that idea.
Yeah, and Staples, the trouble is you don't have a lot of space to move out, to spread out,
Mhm.
where here you can set up tables.
Right, you
and-
keep it organized.
I am going to guess that you may not be able to easily rent a wide format scanner.
Yeah, so
And, but maybe that would limit what you take, but then still keeping it,
Yeah.
keeping track of where it goes in the files and
Mm-hmm.
how you reference that.
Yeah, we'd probably have to pull all the plans out of one file and put sticky notes or something on them and say, this is from this file.
And yeah, you sort of have to do like
try to
one file
keep
at
it
a
or-
time.
Yeah,
And have a nomenclature for filing set up.
yes,
Naming
Where
convention.
filing.
yes, which maybe we can take a look and see what we've got to deal with before we leave tonight.
and the other piece is, pursuant to RSA 91, the town of Dalton must make available for copying or provide copies of. So
So bring your copier with you and you can do whatever you want.
she's requesting these to be provided electronically, but
Yeah,
we may say it's not feasible. And
You might just have to,
you need to, you come here and I will meet you and we'll work through the files, but
That was kind of my point with, was the
Yeah.
phrase about make available for copying, which is mean,
Mhm.
okay, you can do it, and we'll, you know,
we will oversee that.
we'll give you the information, but you have to, you're responsible for making your own copies.
Right.
That's,
You know, if maps weren't involved, that it would at least would be feasible that we could do it here, but the maps are involved, and so that's gonna make things a lot more complicated.
If we're gonna go to the trouble of copying documents, to Terry's point, it might be just as easy to scan them and
Yeah.
then to have them electronically
I
going
know.
home.
We at work have been doing that more and more when we get deeds and plans from our clients, from our municipalities. They send it to us and a lot of times we just scan them right in. We've got the document there. We can return their documents, their hard copies. Sometimes they give us the originals, and they're the only copies they've got. But,
Oh, no,
yeah,
I use electronic files at work all the time.
Yeah.
It's usually when I go to a hard copy file anymore.
yeah. But yeah, to make available for them to copy,
that's key.
then the thing is though, are they going to be scanning it themselves and then we don't have anything to show for it?
Right.
And then we also,
You know,
makes
right.
me a little bit uncomfortable if we lose control of the documents too.
Yeah,
How did they check, have you checked out, when you checked out documents?
It's like Aaron Brockovich, give me a box, here's your documents, you go through and copy what you want. Really
Because-
no oversight.
There was a Concord, but yeah, but you also said that there were mixed documents, there was,
I actually helped them. They had different files in a
Yeah.
box that didn't
Yeah.
belong in there, so, this doesn't go in here.
but I think there's a lot depending on this, so I think that,
You want oversight, you want security of your documents, and like I said,
Yeah.
you don't want anything to disappear and get damaged, et cetera, so.
yeah,
Or misplaced. and
mis,
misfiled.
yeah, misfiled into other folders.
Exactly.
I think like our lease for like our, D-size printer at work is like, it was like $300 a month. I don't know if a short-term rental would be more or less, and that's probably bigger than what would be required for this.
Yeah. Short-term lease would be more expensive, I'm sure.
Right.
Plus delivery, but it seems to be the best solution. I mean, and then at least we can do it here and not go off-site and.
Okay, well, like I said, I'll make contact, hopefully she's back in the office tomorrow and can at least ask a few of these questions and clarify the timeline that it's, you know, that there's some real logistics to getting this done right and in an organized way.
And talk to the town council about what legally we can do and how much we, how much we can kind of spread it out.
You know, yeah, so I think that's one that, I mean, certainly talk to Steve Buckler, but I think we should have a, written legal position on how to proceed.
Yeah. And whether we can, if they're willing to pay for the lease of a scanner, if that's an allowable charge to pass off to them.
And let him know that this might not be the only request for these particular records,
Yeah.
so.
And I will mention that to her too, that we'll get some dialogue with her, but we'll also contact Marilyn and the town council to get guidance on how to proceed.
I mean, would it be possible to coordinate with them that we make as time specific when they arrive here, and we have the equipment to do our copying, and we oversee their copying, so it all gets done, or whether it takes one session or multiple sessions, so that we achieve our need to have an existing file, but they also get, at the same time, we're copying these documents together.
That should almost go without saying.
Yeah.
Well, I just said
Gonna
it.
just-
I think we might as well just do it ourselves maybe and
and do it
provide it to
for
them than to try
I
to.
think it might be less confusing,
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
because they may be saying, we want this and this and this, but we don't need these out of
Right.
this folder, and it's like, just copy the whole thing.
Right, you get.
Yeah,
It
they
is
have.
public, you know, we'll just copy the whole thing, and what you get is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely don't wanna get into,
So
can we
that,
do it this way,
Yeah.
whatever.
And then somebody else wants something else in that folder that
Yeah.
didn't get scanned.
Yeah, and it's like you
Yeah.
said, that we have everything together.
right, yeah,
To
And
use
organized.
in other times if we need them.
yeah. I don't know if we want to do anything like naming every individual file. That could be a royal pain. If we have an electronic folder that might say, you know, map 406 lot 33, then we just scan it as we open the folder, we just start scanning it and just put the files in there. We may not wanna bother to put
Description of
plan,
every single
plan
line.
number 1, or plan number 2, or, you know, letter from applicant. I don't think we wanna get through all that.
That's
And
gonna,
then we just open up the can of worms, what do you call everything?
Yes, that would be too much of a pain. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you say a document associated with whatever transaction.
mhm.
Right, you could, and if you needed to do more work on one particular lot, then you go through and you know, just so you have, organize it better
Yeah,
in the
if
folder, within the folder
whoever,
after it's.
whoever
scanned.
acquires the files, let them look at it, and they can say, oh, this plan is a key piece of information, so let's give it a file name, so we can easily retrieve it again. Let them do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll plan to be, to select board for Monday, and we'll feedback any conversation I've had. Hopefully able to get any feedback from the town attorney by then too, and we can make a game plan on how to proceed.
okay,
I'll probably be there too, so.
Okay.
okay. Good. Terry, thank you for being there last time.
Mhm. Yeah.
That was good.
Mhm.
Terry provided a lot of planning board perspective.
Great, thank you.
Tried.
I appreciate it.
All right, so we're at 8:40. We've covered, I'll mention this one other thing. Last time we talked about whether we want to do any kind of a survey of businesses in Dalton to articulate, you know, what we have now that people like about Dalton, that the companies that we have. And I just started putting together a list, it's of the kind of publicly known ones. I don't think it's very long. I'm sure there are many other smaller ones, but this is what I was able to come up with off the top of my head and a little bit of internet research.
I did that too.
So, as far as, you know, the zoning proposal going forward, that's a question for us as a planning board, you know, how do we wanna articulate what we have now and what people like? And is there a benefit to trying to go around to businesses and ask something like this, you know, business name, owner type of business, years in existence, years under current owner, number of employees, type and square footage of buildings, acreage, other details. I think it's all useful information. The question is whether we would get any response, you know, whether anybody would feel comfortable giving us that kind of information.
Is the purpose of it to kind of grandfather people in or just informational?
Yeah, I think the, you know, the wording that we use in the zoning ordinance needs to encompass this. That, you know, this is who we are today, these kind of companies and, you know, cottage industries, house-based businesses. So we, you know, I think based on the discussion we had at the different meetings, people do not want any of this to go away, you know, and so we should articulate the zoning in a way that these are included and encouraged to continue. But is there a, you know, a size, a limit, that if somebody gets really big, that should trigger something? I don't know, so that's kind of where I was going, which is thinking about how do we talk about what businesses we have right now. I don't really know how big any of these are, whether there are some companies that have, I mean, Packard Logging, I'm not sure if they're,
Are they still in business?
yeah, one of the things I came up with was a bankruptcy.
So I think he's just trucking for other people now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So probably he's a sole
Right,
proprietor
so
or
maybe it
sole
went from
person.
15 down to 1.
Yeah. Yeah, unless he's building back up, I'll ask them to do that. Makes sense.
Right, so if they do, if the motivation is for them to give information so that they're considered grandfathered in, and then I guess with the, you know, further down the road, I guess the question would be, is there something that would trigger it to change so it would no longer be grandfathered in?
I think the intent was so that they wouldn't be considered grandfathered in, that would just be acceptable under the zoning.
Right.
To have like
Past and
parameters for,
future.
yeah,
Right, so you basically like, well, because if people were saying like, okay, we didn't have zoning yesterday, today we have zoning, so everything that existed is grandfathered in. So you would think people would wanna say, hey, I sell yarn out of my barn, right? So that they say they're legit grandfathered.
Mm.
Yeah, so on one sense, it would seem like it serves your best interest to participate in this. In another, it's somebody coming in and asking about your business. And
Right.
they're,
And they're gonna say,
Right.
why?
Yeah.
right,
but
What
the
do you
other
wanna know
opportunity
about?
is to just talk about
sure,
zoning too, and,
yeah, but I think that,
and listen to them too.
yeah, and you spelled that well, you know, we're not talking about grandfathering, we're talking about writing it so that these kind of businesses are
Okay, all right,
encouraged
so that's
to
clarification for
to
me.
continue. And, you know, things like this that we want to be here, of this kind of size. And then, you know, where somebody comes in with a business that's got 150 people, you know, it's somehow, probably not put a number on it, but to phrase it in a way that cottage is generally considered to be 20 employees or less, or something. Or 10 trucks or less, or some.
Right, is that like, so in our master plan, do we say that basically we want cottage industries, or?
Right.
So just to kind of define that?
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
So the other thing I was thinking of, you know, we talked about small businesses, cottage industries last time, we really didn't talk about the agricultural piece of it. I think that's another part of the character development as well.
Right, and I was thinking farms, but again, there definitely are farms, but, you know, you go to Lancaster and you got Forbes Farm, this big industrial dairy operation, and other places that are bigger ag, but there's not a lot in Dalton that is I was trying to think of how to talk, you know, in one way you wanna say to somebody, is this your primary income? Or is this a really strong hobby that you're doing here?
Yeah, that's a good way to put
That's
it.
a little bit of an awkward question, but,
Well, I think a lot of times, people in agriculture have another, I mean, they
Can't live off that.
can't live off of it.
Yeah, they
Or
have
they
another
have
job.
one person who has another, full-time employment for benefits too.
Behind every farmer, there's a wife who works in town.
So it's not, and a lot of the, I think the small farms are cottage industries as well, you know, we sell eggs and
right.
vegetables and things, it's kind of mixed together, but it seems, I just wanted to make sure we don't lose track of that as part of the character of the
Yeah,
job.
no, I think you're absolutely right.
And of course, that's allowable in
Yeah.
the
Right.
zoning.
Yeah,
Something else that kind of occurred to me when we were looking at that map is just that whole area around top of the hill store where there were so many really small lots, is that maybe the zoning as such be written so that there aren't, 60 non-conforming lots, is that, make that area where, since there are already so many small lots, that, a smaller lot size is acceptable too.
Mhm.
So that way the-
Zone or something,
Huh?
rather than them being considered
Right,
grandfathered in.
right.
So are they just lots right now that don't have residents or buildings on them?
Both,
Well,
but
Yeah.
there's, we call them piano keys, it's just, really skinny lots. Boom, 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 right down the hill
Yeah.
into Vermont, there's a bunch up there.
it probably would make a difference if there's something on there now or not, right? Because if there's nothing on there, if they
Basically
go,
residential, I think.
So one of the challenges with zone is you really gotta define it.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
true.
it's lots fronting on this street or some, I'm not saying we can't do it, but we need to be pretty specific about what is in, what's not.
It kind of seems to me that's almost more, the whole idea of zoning is what's permitted in what parts of town, rather than, as you usually say, get off in the weeds. It's starting to get into building permits and
Mm.
stuff like that. This almost seems that that's more what zoning is, okay, certain areas with certain, standards apply, but not try to make a one-size-fits-all for the whole town.
Mm.
right, I think that says, in my opinion, I think that would be the evolution of zoning, as we kind of grow into it. I think the key thing is in March, is just moving from temporary to permanent and having people feel comfortable with that. And then once you kind of have the permanent structure in place, you're no longer in danger of not having zoning.
Mm.
And kind of, personally, I feel like we tread lightly until you get a permanent structure in place. And then, as it evolves, learn more and figure out what people want, kind of have it evolve.
And that was a lot of going out to the businesses
Right,
to see what they want and what they have now, so that we can tailor it and not make anything drastically different.
So we don't need to do anything with this today, and I can send this around, everybody can look at this list and maybe, make notes and think of others that should be on here. And we can talk about, if this is a reasonable set of questions, or if we want less or more. So I'll email this out, so everybody can take a look and get some feedback on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that might be enough for tonight, 8:50. Any other topics we want to get into now? Any emails that I missed, or I have to keep checking my junk mail and see if any other ones go in there. All right, well, if there's nothing else, if anybody wants to make a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
Okay.
Actually, wait a minute. Never mind, I was thinking, we meet again on Wednesday the 4th, right?
Right, so
Okay.
that's,
For me, I was thinking Monday, that was Labor Day, but I have mine.
yeah, make sure I put that down there, September 4th. So that's Labor Day week, but it's in the middle of the week, so. Okay, thanks everyone.